There's this national park my friend Craig and I used to ride bikes to every Sunday. It was kind of out of the way for us, but we went to it anyway because it was secluded, and no families ever really went there. To be perfectly honest, we would mostly only go there to find places to smoke, and this park was perfect for that. There were tons of vultures, moccasins, and even alligators there, and they had those hanging willows full of moss everywhere we looked. So, being huge fans of creepy stuff, we loved it. Anyways, now that you've got an idea of the place, I'll tell you about the terrifying shit that happened to us one afternoon. It was around dusk and we were walking by the river, looking for a nice clearing in the woods to chief one. We saw this broken limb leaning up against another one at the front of the tree line. It was like it was intentionally set there to block the path, which we both thought was strange. So we went down to check the thing out, and Craig found this little trail behind it. We started walking down it and realized it went pretty deep into the woods. It led to a little clearing with just a lawn chair, like someone had been hanging out back there. Craig was like, whatever though, and just jumped straight into it. Before I knew what he was doing, he had a J sparked up and was blowing O's at the ground like he always did. That was when I saw this bulge in the ground covered up by palm fronds and stuff. I passed on the J and kneeled down to see what it was. When I kicked at it, I noticed it was a book. A big old-ass book. Look, it's the Book of the Dead, I chuckled at Craig and leaned down to pick it up. The book was probably written in the early 1900s by the look of the pages. Craig tried to clean off the cover and could eventually make out only one word. It said, everlasting. He opened up the front cover and the year 1923 was written on the inside. So random, Craig said as he flipped open the front of it. Already feeling the weed, we started to laugh hysterically. We sat on the ground with it and started flipping through pages. A lot of the early ones were recipes for these weird juices and stuff, but as we got further back, they started getting more complicated and the lists of ingredients grew longer and weirder. It looks like some kind of recipe book, Craig laughed. The next page we flipped to was clearly more used, and the top corners of several pages were folded in. There was a diagram of a human on it, beside an image of an old wooden cup. I started reading this list of ingredients beneath it, and I saw one said, pituitary. This sobered me up a bit as Craig turned the page. What was next was something I don't ever want to see again. It was a page full of pictures of limbs and other organs, and beside them, ways you could remove them from the body and combine them with these different mixtures in order to make different flavors of ice cream. There were also subtitles beneath them, written in symbols I'd never seen before. The last page of the book was the one that really stuck with me though. It just had a handwritten list of names on it, hundreds of them. I immediately started to feel sick and wanted to take it to the cops, but Craig was hesitant. He didn't want to get involved and just wanted to put it back. So we started wrestling over it when we got distracted by this eerie tune echoing through the woods. It sounds like the ice cream truck song, I whispered. This late? It's like 6 p.m., Craig asked, finally starting to seem a little nervous. The music was intoxicating and almost put us into a trance for a few minutes. Then it stopped and Craig shook his head, coming back to reality. Let's get the hell out of here, he said, throwing the book on the ground. We headed down the dimly lit path, but immediately stopped when we saw a very tall, thin man up ahead with an all-white jumpsuit on. He looked like he was dressed in 50s attire and was ambling slowly towards us, dragging something behind him. We turned and took off down a different trail. Still kind of high and lost, we stumbled through different pathways trying to call the police. Neither of us had any signal though. We eventually ended up at a little clearing with a small shed built up from these old rusty sheets of metal. Not really knowing what else to do, we went in. Inside there were several sealed steel barrels with labels just reading ice cream in all caps on them. there was also this rickety old work table that had one of those horns on it from the top of an ice cream truck. Only it was much bigger than normal and was attached to this weird-looking quartz-like stone instead of a battery. Beside it was an old-fashioned TV playing a video of children walking towards an ice cream truck, mesmerized, staring at one of the horns, playing the music. Ignoring everything else, Craig picked up a shovel and pointed it at the door, telling me to open it. I was really glad he was seeming to be taking this better than I was. We opened the door, and at the edge of the trees we saw a silhouette of the man standing there, the last few moments of daylight reflecting off his greasy bald forehead and long dirty teeth. Craig ran down a path to his left and I followed behind. Strangely, the man didn't chase after us though. He just went straight for the shed. Then surprisingly, in my somewhat high state, I realized what the man was doing and immediately covered my ears. The ice cream truck jingle began blaring throughout the woods. Craig suddenly dropped his shovel and turned back towards the shed. The man was waiting there for him, gently signaling with his hand to come back. I screamed and kicked at Craig, but I couldn't use my hands, so I just turned and ran. I didn't stop for what felt like miles, until I finally hit a fence where the edge of the park was. I took one of my fingers out of my ear, and the music was gone. I hopped the fence and checked for my phone signal. Seeing that I had full bars, I immediately called the cops. Eventually they came and we looked for Greg, but he wasn't anywhere to be found. This was months ago, and to this day they still haven't located him, or the shed, or even that horrible book we found. Pretty traumatized by the whole thing, I moved in with my aunt upstate last month to try and get away from the area. The night I arrived in her neighborhood, I went for a walk down the street and saw an ice cream truck coming in my direction. It was dark out, so I knew it was weird that an ice cream truck was still driving around. Luckily though, I was able to hide in some bushes and it didn't see me. But I'm sure it'll be back. If anyone's heard anything about this man, or knows a way I can stop him, please send me a message. I'm worried that the only way I'll ever truly be rid of him is when my name is finally written in the back of that terrifying recipe book.